Hello, friends. Welcome back to Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and today we're going to have just a quick conversation about a couple interesting slides that I want to show you. But more importantly, I want to talk about the question that I think is on so many home buyers' minds, mostly first-time home buyers, but really anybody who's considering purchasing a new home. And that question is, do I buy now or do I wait for interest rates to drop even further? And it's a tough thing. We've already seen interest rates drop a little bit. I think it's widely anticipated that rates are going to drop even further. But I'm going to show you a couple slides where there is quite a bit of a divergence between what the market thinks might happen and what the Fed is saying and really what market sentiment might be. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to answer that question is now the right time to buy? Because I'm going to show you a slide that I think is going to blow you away. So the first thing I want to show is this slide here. All this really represents is the investor sentiment versus the economic sentiment. So, how's the market feeling versus how are investors feeling? And what I thought was really interesting about this slide is that the investor sentiment is quite high. Matter of fact, it spiked up recently, but the economic sentiment, meaning the market, is not feeling so optimistic. So we have the economic sentiment dropping as the investor sentiment is rising. And I promise you guys, you can look at this graph. These two things typically, move together. So I think either, what we're seeing here is a significant turnaround in the economic outlook, or perhaps the investors have a little bit of optimism and that's going to be returned back down and the market will turn that around. So we see a lot of this going on right now as we look across all the economic indicators. There's just mixed bag of information. But this would tell me that the investor is extremely optimistic. And I think, this slide mostly pertains to the way that the stock market is being viewed, not necessarily, all of the market, but, we could be due for a reversal. We saw all-time highs in the stock market just recently. Maybe that's going to turn around, or maybe the investor's right and the market is going to turn around. I don't know. I'm betting on if you're an investor and you're in the stock market, I'd be careful personally. But I thought that was an interesting slide just showing the divergence that we see. Now, the next slide I want to show you is what we're seeing. Again, it's another divergence. It's a divergence between what the Fed has kind of forecasted they're probably going to do with interest rates. Now, remember, the Fed doesn't actually come out and give us a forecast, but we can see what the voting Fed members are thinking by looking at the dot plot and looking at what is expected to happen based on the way they're seeing the market and the need to drive monetary policy at the time of their last meeting. So what you see here is this light blue line is kind of what the Fed has projected they're going to do based on what you see in the dot plot. And you can see it goes down, but it doesn't go down nearly as quick. Now, look at the red line. The red line is a steep line. And the other difference I would notice is, the Fed's, if you look at their line, it stays flat for quite a while before they start dropping rates, where the market is pricing in that they're going to start dropping immediately and quite a bit more significant than what the Fed has forecasted. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with the market, but it's always a bad thing when you have that big of a gap between the Fed. They always say, don't fight the Fed, right? So if the Fed holds true to that sort of a timeline, right now, the market is already pricing in that they're going to do quite a bit more than that. And if they don't, there will be some negative reactions. Meaning we won't see rates drop nearly as quickly when they get when the market gets news that's different from what they've already priced in is going to happen in the market. So that's a very interesting slide, and again, another pretty significant divergence. Now, the last thing I want to touch on here, not the last thing, but the last graph before I get into our main topic here, is what this chart shows with the red and the blue lines is that the 10-year and the price of oil pretty much track almost always together. And that's been good, right? I mean, we've seen oil prices come down significantly. That's drastically improved our inflation numbers. And we've also seen the 10-year come down drastically. So the reason I show you this slide is because this is one market mover that could disrupt this kind of trajectory that we're on with interest rates. And that is if oil prices, for whatever reason, rebound and spike back up. And there's lots of reasons to think that that could potentially happen. Matter of fact, at the time of this recording, there was some news just today about some oil tankers in the Red Sea and, you know, some stuff going on in the Middle East that could cause some volatility in the price of oil. And so just know that, you know, watch oil prices closely, because if we see oil rebound in price, it's going to be inflationary, and it could change the trajectory that we're on right now. So right now we don't see a divergence, but something to keep a close eye on as the year rolls through. Just thought I would point that out. Okay. Now, this last slide that I want to show you is really what this conversation is about today. And this was shocking to me when I saw it. But if you look at the caption across the top, and again, I took this from Dan Rawich. He puts out an awesome market update, and this was just one of many slides that he shared with us. But this one's interesting. It says, home prices surely must go down when interest rates rise, right? Well, look at this graph. So the blue line represents the Case-Shiller, which is essentially home prices in the US. And you can see that it did dip down a little bit. We've talked about this in 22. You saw it kind of dip down a little bit, and now it's back on the climb. But look at the red line. That's mortgage interest rates that started at a very low 2.65%. Back in January of 2021, and, you know, peaked out somewhere close to 8%. But during that time, home prices continued to rise steadily, with just a slight dip in 2022. Matter of fact, home prices are up 32% since January of 21. Is that not a sobering number? So here's the scary part, is that if all logic would tell us that with increasing interest rates, we should see a drop in home prices because of affordability, because of a lack of, appetite to purchase homes, all of those things. Well, that's not what we saw. So the question is, when interest rates start coming down, what does this blue line do? And my guess is it only gets steeper and it only goes up more, telling us that even though interest rates may come down we know they'll come down some, but we don't know how much they're going to come down in 2024. And the question of, do I wait or do I purchase now? I think the answer to that is an easy one. I would purchase as soon as you can. Look, if you want to be a homeowner, which I strongly encourage you to do so for so many reasons that we've talked about on this podcast. But if you and your family want to be in a home at some point in the future, now's the time to start looking. The good news is, especially where we live up here in the Pacific Northwest, but I think it's like this around most of the country, is it's seasonal. Everyone knows that it gets more competitive as we get into the spring buying season. There's a reason why it has its own name. It's because everyone looks to buy homes in the spring. So here we are as we're in the second week of January. It might be time to take advantage of the decrease that we've already seen in interest rates. Remember, just because you get a house under contract doesn't mean you need to lock your rate in immediately. There still may be some improvement in interest rates from the time that you get pre-approved and out with your real estate agent to go start shopping for homes. You still might pick up on some of these improvements in interest rates, but I think that you're going to be very disappointed if you wait for interest rates to come down a little bit and you see what happens with home values. And really, more than just the values, even though I think they're going to go parabolic, more so than that is the frustration when there's so many buyers looking to purchase too few homes. We go back to the times of having to waive your appraisal, waive home inspections, waive any contingencies whatsoever, right? You're competing against, people that are willing to make those concessions, people that are overbidding the home. So, you take, your spouse and your family and you view a home and you go, man, this would be the perfect home for our family, just to find out there's 5 other competing offers against it. And you're not going to get the home that you really were able to envision yourself in. Those are painful and difficult things to go through. And so for all of those reasons, my answer is an easy one. I think that you get pre-approved and start looking for a home right now, if that's what's on your goals for 2024. I wouldn't wait for rates to improve. Look, the reality is you can always restructure your mortgage. If rates do drop significantly in 2024, then you can refinance. And yeah, there's typically a little bit of cost associated with that, but I think the cost of waiting to purchase is so much higher for all the reasons that we mentioned. So anyways, I hope this chart showed for you, what it did for me, which is, man, I'm scared to see what that blue line looks like when interest rates really start dropping and the market picks up, because house prices have been resilient. So anyways, you guys, that's market shares for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. And I hope more than that you enjoy all the conversations that we have here. And if you do, please consider liking and subscribing to the podcast, but also tell someone about it. Ask one of your coworkers, hey, have you heard of market shares? If you check that out, that word of mouth is really what is going to help our channel grow. And we got a lot of great things planned in 2024. So until next time, I'll see you then.